Let's do it. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On tonight's show, I have a very special guest. He's just published or finished a book. The title of the book is Pedogate Primer, The Politics of Pedophilia. His name is Philip Fairbanks. He's living in the Philippines right now, so we have a bit of a delay. We're going to see how this works out. Hopefully he'll just do most of the talking. But we have a bit of a delay. Yeah, I mean, it seems to like come and go. But anyway, some of the topics that he covers are topics that I've had guests on my show before in the past, such as the finders. But there's definitely some interesting things he covers in his book. Some of the chapter headings contain a lot of interesting information. One is Barry Carroll Huesman's Pedophilia Hiding in Plain View in the Victorian era. Another is the Seventh Floor Group Cover-Up. Harry Hay and the Safe Schools. I know about Harry Hay. I wrote about Harry Hay in Children of the Beast, but this was some additional information I was fascinated to learn about.
I learned from you that Harry Hay had a Crowley connection. I didn't know that before having been introduced.
Right. Well, I didn't either.
So yeah, not surprising, but yeah.
Right. So let's see. So just to do another, you were influenced by this book by Dave McGowan. So that was I can see the kind of similar kind of leaning on that. So for people who don't know your name, talk a little bit about yourself, Phil, and how you came to start writing this book.
Right. Well, I've been a semi-professional to professional writer for the past 20 years. I've been in print, in the UK, in Australia, in several online venues. Paranoia Magazine and New Dawn Magazine as far as more conspiracy flavored kind of stuff. And for the past 3 years, I've been working in the Philippines in Manila with the Goldwater. And the last couple of years, we haven't been doing a lot of articles. We've been working on some other things. We started doing more videos on Torah3.com. And which is basically started as with YouTube and Twitter and all the social media trying to be the social media censorship. We wanted to create like a free speech platform. So that's what Torah 3 is for videos. It allows streaming and video archival. So yeah. And I think it was I was about 17. So about 21 years ago, when I first learned about MK Ultra, and that's what sparked everything. Now, when I was a kid, of course, around 93, everybody got JFK fever. You remember JFK fever on the 30th anniversary of the assassination? You had the Oliver Stone movie come out, and so in between, like the JFK fever, and then starting to listen to stuff like the Art Bell Show, and listening to Art Bell late at night. And then around 17, though, that was when it really hit. That's when I discovered CIA's MK Ultra. I became just obsessed with this, like the excesses of the security state, I guess you could say. And here's another area that we definitely kind of overlap interest: the connection between the security state and the occult. Because if you look really close, it's probably not a coincidence that the people that found all these organizations that are running things behind the scenes, the people in charge of who gets famous in literature and art, the CIA is propping up modern art, and these are guys that are connected to the Skull and Bones and other occult and secret societies. So that's pretty much what first got my interest, and I definitely want to shout out David Livingstone and Ed Opperman, Dave McGowan. There's a handful of folks. Jay Dyer's another one that's pretty good. Like you, I prefer the term parapolitics rather than conspiracy theory. Because, people are allergic. A lot of people are allergic to the term conspiracy theory. So if you call yourself a conspiracy theorist, people instantly think you're a nut. No matter how many FOIA documents you show them, no matter how many, well, it says here on, in the government's own records and in these papers of record, if they think it's a conspiracy theory, they're not going to listen. It's not a conspiracy theory that, for instance, the finders were let off completely when the CIA made it an internal investigation, despite all this evidence of child trafficking and pornography and animal sacrifice. It's creepy stuff. So yeah, over the past 20 years though, I've been covering a lot of these topics, like and I think they all sort of tie together somewhat. Whether it's you mentioned the Victorian chapter, the Cleveland Street scandal, the story of the Cleveland Street scandal and Oscar Wilde. A lot of people aren't familiar with that. Oscar Wilde's sodomy trial. There's quite a possibility, I believe, that part of the reason why he got the maximum penalty anyone ever received for sodomy in the UK is because he had dirt. He had dirt on people who were involved in the Cleveland Street scandal, which was basically the Franklin cover-up of the UK.
Tell people what the street scandal is. Tell people what that scandal was.
Yeah, Cleveland Street scandal. Yeah, so we've got these courier boys, right? They're telegraph messenger boys. Many of them very, very young. We're talking about, barely pubescent and prepubescent boys who are going around and delivering messages. They're just telegram messengers. That's all it is. No, in fact, these couriers were being used as sex slaves. And what's really shocking is who the clientele were. Because it's the same kind of thing you see with Epstein. It's the same old story over and over and over again. It's the most rich and powerful people. It's literal royalty. And all these people are, covering for each other. And, I believe that Oscar Wilde had perhaps some dirt. His last three works seem to sort of allude to the Jack the Ripper case and the Cleveland Street scandal. And I think, there was supposedly a theft. And I think that possibly he had sort of like Assange's dead man switch kind of thing. He had some blackmail on some important people. It was stolen from him. And at that point, they're like, okay, now that he's out of the way, let's, charge him with sodomy, get him out of the country, ruin his name. So, no matter what he says, nobody will listen to him. So, the Cleveland Street scandal possibly embroiled Prince Albert, among others. Nearly every person who was involved in the court trial had something to do with the Cleveland Street scandal as well. So just that alone is kind of suspicious. It's a little more than suspicious, I'd say. Yeah. And it's this same motif. Yeah, it's the same motif you see in the Franklin cover-up. It's the same motif you see in the Epstein scandal, where you got these really powerful people. And often I do believe that in all these cases that the kids were probably also used as drug mules and to deliver secret messages and this sort of thing. The fact that
when you're done with that, can you also do the intro or the importance of Barry, Peter Pan, and themes of Alice in Wonder once you're done with Oscar Wilde, please?
Yes. Right, yeah. We're talking about in one of the very first chapters, the Victorian era. And for most people, the image of the Victorian era, you think, the Victorian era, that's everyone's sexually repressed, and they would cover the legs of chairs because it might make you think of a lady's leg or something like that. But at the same time, you had this weird kind of open pedophilia going on. It was very common to have nude photography of children, and it's it strikes me also as a little bit odd. I was a huge Alice in Wonderland fan as a kid and even as an adult. So it kind of hurts me to think of the fact that it's very likely that Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, better known as Lewis Carroll, was a repressed pedophile. That's what this isn't me saying it. Like if you look at the scholarly journals and most of his biographers, they all agree. A bit of evidence about that, for instance, around the time that he broke with the Liddell family, because Alice of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is Alice Liddell. Around the time that he broke with that family, when they were like, "No, you don't hang out here anymore," he kept copious diaries, and for some reason, the pages from the period where he was kicked out of the Liddell family for good are mysteriously missing. Nobody knows what happened to it. The prevailing theory is that it was a member of Dodgson/Carroll's family that perhaps to keep him from being embarrassed by what was in those missing pages. But yeah, so two of the most enduring and beloved children's stories of all time. You got Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and you've also got J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. J.M. Barrie's story, that's another weird one. For folks who aren't familiar with the term Svengali, a Svengali figure is somebody who kind of comes in and mesmerizes a person, gets them under their spell. The author of Trilby is George du Maurier, and that's where we get the term Svengali. And it's ironic because the author Piers Dudgeon wrote a somewhat controversial book. He pretty much believes that J.M. Barrie was somewhat of a Svengali himself, and that he kind of had a mesmeric control over certain families. And we definitely know that apparently after the Lost Boys in Peter Pan are based on boys that J.M. Barrie raised. They were not his children, however. These boys were orphaned, and this is another really weird thing. Apparently, there was it was mistranscribed because the kids were supposed to be raised by Jenny, I think it was, who was like a maid of a trusted maid or a trusted somebody that the family trusted. J.M. Barrie is the one who transcribes this letter from the mother before she dies, and he just happens to put his own name there. No. It's not Jenny. It's James Barrie. I'm the one who's supposed to raise the kids. Now, the kids themselves, the young boys themselves, despite the fact that one, maybe two of them ended up committing suicide, which is really, tragic. They pretty much said, a friend of Nicholas, one of the Lost Boys that was raised by Barrie, believes that Barrie was, like Carroll, a very repressed pedophile. But once again, most people don't think that either of them acted on these urges. However, there was nude photography in both cases. Both of these authors took some seamy photographs by modern day standards. Maybe not as bad as some of the stuff you'd see in the Netflix movie Cuties, but
Right.
but
Well,
still by modern standards,
we should finish
this
up
is
with
stuff that
Cuties.
definitely wouldn't fly.
Right. We should finish up with Cuties. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
You mean like right now?
No. We'll finish the whole interview up with Cuties. But isn't all the symbolism and the characters of, for sure, Peter Pan, but also Alice in Wonderland, but Peter Pan particularly has all kinds of symbols in the relationships.
Oh, they're absolutely.
Peter Pan, right? Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah. Pedophiles have been used. Pedophiles, including NAMBLA, and then there was the what was it? Wonderland was this large underground internet pedophile ring. So yeah, absolutely. Whether or not Jay and Barry and Lewis Carroll acted on their urges, they've become sort of like definitely symbolic, like the characters they created and everything. Became kind, Neverland Ranch. Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch is a good example.
Right.
The Wonderland pedophile ring is another good example. There was a guy who was a member of NAMBLA who wrote a book from prison. I'm blanking on the title. It's something about the Lost Boys or something Peter Pan. But yeah, absolutely. Whether or not Barry and Carol acted on their urges, it's very obvious that pedophiles picked up on that subtext that they like to call themselves now, of course, child lovers and minor attracted persons. I don't even like the term pedophile because it's Greek for child lover. And if you love children, you're not going to abuse them sexually. So, whatever term you want to use, though, that community, child molesters and would-be child molesters, seem to be really attracted to these themes and ideas and characters, and they kind of latched onto them for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
Philip, but it's also permeated our culture, right? So Peter Pan has gone through so many different iterations. Hook and Goonies was kind of Peter Pan-ish, wasn't it? And some of these other, so many stories are based upon those. Yeah. Anyway, I just turned my video off.
Another thing that I mentioned in the book. To save bandwidth.
Maybe
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to stop.
Another example there.
I'm going to stop your video. Can you turn off your video?
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
audio. Yeah. You turn off the video.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
There we go. Yeah. But yeah. Parfrey, Adam Parfrey, who is considered, the most dangerous publisher in America, was one of his monikers. Adam Parfrey, of course, wrote, I mentioned this in the book, Pederastic Park, which goes into Steven Spielberg, and it talks about Hook. It also talks about some of his other works, which seems to have some, it's stuff that I did not see until I read this. But it's one of those things where, hindsight is 20/20. But yeah, after looking into it, it's like, the story, Hook with Robin Williams, it is kind of, you can sort of see where it might be popular with the NAMBLA set. The story of this grown-up Peter Pan having paint rubbed all over his body, and it's just it's kind of creepy. Parfrey's an interesting Adam Parfrey, by the way, also.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah. He never went into great detail about this. At one point, I remember him saying in a conversation we had through DM. I only got a chance to meet him once in person, but we corresponded for a few years. But I remember him saying, kind of alluding to Tom Hanks, and how Tom Hanks is this spiffy character, super clean, nicest guy in Hollywood, and he kind of alluded to the fact that was a very contrived character that he was playing in real life. Never went into great detail. And, so I'm not going to speculate on what he meant by that. But yeah, I definitely do wonder somewhat about Steven Spielberg and some of these guys.
Spielberg is pictured with Michael Jackson. He's friends with, Tom Hanks was in one of his movies, Goonies. There's all these connections with him and all very suspicious underage situations. There's even more rumors on Crazy Days and Nights about that guy. So there's tons of information, but interesting story about Parfrey.
Oh yeah, they all hang out. It's definitely yeah.
But Parfrey himself, I have a picture of him in a process church of the Final Judgment satanic ritual or occult ritual.
Oh yeah. He was definitely a big fan of the process church. which
No, it's well, the way that I
and
have
has
it is he was.
connections to Charles
Yeah,
Manson
yeah,
and Genesis Peorage, and
yeah.
yeah.
Well, one other interesting story is if you ever watch the Clint Eastwood movie Josie Wales, and you see the sequence in that film where he spits on the snake oil salesman's white suit, that snake oil salesman is Adam Parfrey's dad.
Oh, right, really? Now, I
Yes.
knew that his dad was in Hollywood. I did not know he was in The Outlaw Josie Wells. I'm going to have to rewatch that now, though.
Yeah.
But I believe that's probably why Parfrey, he's kind of a modern day. I considered him like a modern day Kenneth Anger as far as the guardian of Hollywood gossip. But at the same time, like Kenneth Anger, he definitely seemed to dabble in some of the darker currents, occultic currents. To be fair, that's probably how he knew some of what he knew, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
but yeah.
So what other subject do you want to move on to? Can you talk a little bit about the False Memory Syndrome Foundation and how that ties into?
Oh wow, yeah. That's we mentioned MK Ultra before. I'm sure most people listening here are familiar with MK Ultra and the CIA's mind control experiments. Uh, but in the 80s, of course, there was this explosion, this epidemic of child abuse. I don't think it was a growth in child abuse instances. I think it was just for the first time it wasn't staying in the shadows. Okay? And there was a big blowback against that. And part of the blowback against that, and part of the reason why the so-called satanic panic is so discredited is due to the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. And who are these guys? Well, it's a mixture of folks like Ralph Underwager, who founded the group Vocal Victims of Child Abuse Laws, who tried to change laws where people wouldn't have to report child abuse. The same guy that did an interview with Pedogate, a Dutch pedophilia journal, saying that you can get closer to God by having sex with children. Sounds like something straight out of Moses Berg and the Family / Children of God cult. But you got Ralph Underwager. You've got Morris West, Dr. Morris Jolly and West, aka Dr. Jolly, who is an MK Ultra scientist. There were some other. Let's see, Martin Orn was another MK Ultra scientist that we had that's involved the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. And then there were people like the Frades. Pamela Frade, Dr. Pamela Frade was one of the was pretty much the spokesperson for the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. And she also married her stepbrother, and then was accused, and then her husband was accused of incest. Now, why would somebody who married their stepbrother or stepsister be into incest is anyone's guess. But yeah, so you've got a mixture of parents accused of abusing their children, MK Ultra scientists, vocal pedophile advocates, and all of these guys come together and form this group, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Now, the real irony here is, they had a great power. They were a huge, dominating PR lobby, basically. And
Right.
the
Didn't they crop up out of
uh, that was one of the the McMartin preschool case. That was one of their first big fights. But they were involved in hundreds of cases of child abuse where they would get their, I'm making air quotes here, experts. Some of their experts are these literal pedophile advocates. Others are MK Ultra scientists. And of course, if you know anything about MK Ultra, planting false memories and erasing memories were some of the goals of some of these CIA scientists. So I find it all very peculiar and suspect for sure. But the McMartin preschool case is, the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, along with Colonel Michael Aquino, who was involved in another one of these, preschool abuse cases. He was Anton LaVey of the Church of Satan's like sidekick, and then he started the Temple of Set. And he was also, of course, a member of Army PSYOPs. In fact, around the same time as he was in Army PSYOPs, I believe Blatty, the author of The Exorcist, was also working in the Army. Don't quote me on this. I'm not sure if he was in PSYOPs or not, but I always wondered if there was, I don't know, Blatty claims that there was a lot of weird stuff going on with the quote unquote Georgetown set, a lot of whom are a mixture of intellectuals, occult and secret society members, and intelligence agents. And so, I do wonder if, Colonel Michael Aquino's influence, like, kind of weighed in on Blatty's fears. But absolutely. The False Memory Syndrome Foundation and Aquino, they were kind of rushed in on the scene whenever there was a case of ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse, child abuse, incest. Yeah.
Yeah, they would always crop up. And what was they had like one court expert. I can't remember his name, but he would pop up in the weirdest cases. So it wasn't just Jolly and West. It was not Everly. I can't remember it now. But, kind of moving on. Can you talk a little bit about
the Everlys? Right.
Yeah.
The folks, the folks.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about your research into Hollywood?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, Hollywood pop culture and the culture of pedophiles.
All right, yeah. With the Me Too movement, like, obviously really shook up Hollywood, but I find, what really disgusts me is it seems like people are more concerned about the millionaire adults who were abused by these, producer sickos like Harvey Weinstein, when, the casting couch scenario apparently applies to children too. It's, it's sick and sad and disgusting, and people don't want to think about it. But, you got guys like Dan Schneider of Nickelodeon, who ran a comedy camp with Brian Peck, who is another guy who, Brian Peck is fired from Nickelodeon for abusing a child. And then Disney's like, hey, so maybe we should hire this convicted child molester to work on kids' shows. It's absolutely insane to me. Speaking of guys named Brian, hey, how about Bryan Singer, Oscar winner Bryan Singer, child abuser and Oscar winner Bryan Singer. In this post-Me Too era, in this post-Time's Up era, you would think that there would be an emphasis on protecting children, not just adults. And hey, I'm not saying we shouldn't care about the men and women who, whether it's Rose McGowan or Terry Crews or, all these people who are abused by people like Weinstein and Spacey and whatnot. But the fact that, the kids are ignored. Victor Salva is still working. What a creep. Jeepers Creepers franchise, the third movie came out just a few years ago. He's had, several movies, made millions of dollars, despite the fact that, in his first feature film, Clown House, he took like an 11 or 12-year-old boy and he kept him after the show, and he made his own little movies, child pornographer and child molester goes on to, make all these movies and millions of dollars and is working for Disney. Like, it was Caravan Pictures, I believe. but Caravan Pictures, like Touchstone and several others at the time, was owned by Disney. So it blows my mind that we got to get rid of Roseanne because she did a tasteless tweet while on Ambien. But Joel Iwataki is a child molester who's worked on recent Disney films. Victor Salva is still working. Bryan Singer is winning freaking Oscars. It's absolutely insane to me that, like I said, in a post-Me Too era, for some reason, the kids are just ignored. They're absolutely just like letting it slide.
Right. And what's your take? I mean, you have also another section about JonBenet Ramsey. What's your take on the Ramsey case?
Well, as far as JonBenet Ramsey, I would recommend people read Dave McGowan's Program to Kill: Politics of Serial Murder, and he cites Stephen Singular's oh crap, I'm not, I can't recall the name of the book off the top of my head. I've got a copy at home. It's a difficult read, both of them. But I kind of disagree with Singular on some points. Stephen Singular doesn't think that the Ramseys did it. I think the Ramseys were involved, but they weren't alone. And speaking of the whole ritual element, you had the guy, the one guy who apparently was friends with a lot of little kids who died too young, and his wife, after his daughter was kidnapped on December 25th, just like right around the same time as JonBenet Ramsey, but like a decade earlier or 15 years earlier, had his daughter kidnapped, and then his daughter and her friend, his daughter had to witness her friend being raped, and then after that, the guy's wife writes Hey Rue, which is a play based on the ritual killing of Sylvia Likens, which involves a little girl being, assaulted and murdered and then found in a basement. It's presumed guilty. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And it's a great book on the culture of the underground culture of child pornography and the dark side of Boulder, Colorado. I definitely recommend it, even though I disagree with the idea that the Ramseys were innocent in all this. And, do I think that they killed JonBenet? I don't know. I do believe that they were at least aware that she was being abused. She was being abused. She had been abused for a while. There's medical records that show she was sexually abused. It's yeah. It's really it's really hard to read. But yeah, for anybody interested in the JonBenet case, McGowan's book and Singular's book, definitely check those out.
Philip, can you also talk about the Seventh Floor Group cover-up and talk about that to the audience?
Right. And here's another one of those things where it starts sounding like tinfoil hat territory. But, thanks to WikiLeaks and, some unredacted documents, this isn't made up stuff. Trump has popularized the term deep state, but that term's been around for a while, a lot longer than Trump has been president. And the idea that there's this group of unelected bureaucrats, the shadow government, this is an old idea. JFK warned us of it. But yeah, the Seventh Floor Group is supposedly, State Department officials. They would meet. They would decide, what gets deleted from, what gets redacted when it comes time to release FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and apparently the Seventh Floor Group is implicated. Let's see, Richard Higbee is the guy that I believe was the whistleblower who leaked the transcript to show that the seventh floor group absolutely 100% covered up, ambassadors involved in pedophilia. There was another whistleblower who, Fednazin, Aurelia Fednazin, they had, like all the papers on her, an office was broken into and all the papers on her stolen. Bear in mind, they're like silver bars and things of value. And all that stuff is left untouched, but they take the papers related to this whistleblower. So that's the seventh floor group. They wielded an incredible amount of power, and these are folks that are not elected representatives. They're bedbug bureaucrats. The kind of folks, some of whom had been in that position for decades, and people talk about the right wing, the left wing. No, some of these guys were absolutely, involved in both Republican and Democrat administrations. It doesn't, like whoever you vote for, there are certain corrupt bedbug bureaucrats that are going to be in there and deciding what you see and. But yeah, so the seventh floor group chapter, I also mentioned Operation Flicker, which is another one of those stories that it blows my mind that this is not covered. The fact that the Department of Defense is like number 300 out of the top 3,000 networks for sharing child porn, that's not good. Equally scary, equally awful is the fact that like 80%, like they found out who it was that was buying child porn and trading child porn, sometimes from the Pentagon or military bases. Some of these people have security clearance and they're sitting at their desk in their government office trading child porn, and for some reason the government said that 80% of those people, they just didn't have the resources to go after them. Sorry guys, we're going to have to let 80% of the pedophiles with security clearance in our government go. This is crazy, So yeah, the idea of you start saying deep state, dual state, shadow government, people think you're crazy, but no, I mean, like, there are obviously these cover-ups and conspiracies, and there are powerful people, and a lot of them happen to, I think the pedophilia thing, the reason why it's so prevalent is because it's so potent as a blackmail tool, like whether it's the Franklin scandal or Epstein, blackmail and the occult side of things as well. I do believe that, that interplay between the occult and the intelligence community has a lot to do with it too.
Gotcha. And wasn't the seventh floor group just recently discovered under Trump, that it had been there for a while?
Pretty much, yeah. It was I guess I'm thinking January or February of 2017. Right. That was around the time, like everybody got fired. Like everybody on the seventh floor got fired. Like, well, okay, it depends on who you ask. Some say that they all quit willingly, and I believe it was Rex Tillerson who said no, they didn't quit. We fired them. So yeah.
Gotcha. And can you talk about a subject I'm interested in? The Harry Hay, who I covered, who played the organ at the Crowley rituals with all these characters at the beginning of the Agape Lodge, that included, all the Rocket guy. I can't remember his name right now. But can you talk about Harry Hay and the Safe Schools?
Jack Parsons.
Parsons, thank you.
Right. The Agape Lodge, of the Ordo Templi Orientis, that's Jack Parsons. And like I said, you were the one that introduced me to the fact that Harry Hay was involved in that. Harry Hay was, one of the original gay rights activists. He was an ardent communist, but he was also the founder of the Radical Fairies and one of the co-founders of NAMBLA, the National American Man Boy Love Association. And a lot of groups, a lot of gay rights groups would like to kind of erase him from their history because it's embarrassing. And I would be the last person to say that there's a correlation between pedophilia and homosexuality, but of course there are some people who are both, and Harry Hay was certainly one of those. And it's really kind of scary though that Harry Hay had such an influence on some of the people who are in charge of keeping our schools safe. Kevin Jennings was the safe school czar under Obama, and he was kind of a controversial figure for saying that he was a fan of Harry Hay. Also, the fact that he told a 15-year-old kid who confided in him that he was having sex with an adult man, and he says, "Well, wear a condom." Now, it's of my opinion that if a child is having sex with an adult and they go to the authorities, the adult should report it, and if you're not the kind of person who's going to report it, then you probably shouldn't be in charge of safe schools, right? But Kevin Jennings is actually the most innocent. Kevin Jennings is the most innocent of the three I mentioned. We got Benjamin Levine in Canada who spent a few months in prison for trading child porn, and this is because the judge felt he was truly remorseful and wasn't apt to reoffend, despite the fact that he had admitted to molesting his own daughters, right? Then you got Gary Dowsett, who was involved in the Safe Schools program in Australia. And this is the guy who was saying, oh, gay rights activism, we need to spice it up. We need to get rid of the age of consent. Literally wanted to get rid of the age of consent, literally advocating for sex with children. And for some reason, Australia's like, hey, why don't we put him in charge of safe schools? So that's why, in the book, I asked the question, safe schools, safe for who? For the pedophile administrators? Because that's what it looks like.
It's pretty amazing. And do you have anything to say? We're at about 45 minutes. Do you have anything to say about the cuties controversy?
Right. Oh, me. I was finishing the book when all that cropped up. And, so I had to kind of rush out an epilogue about that whole thing. The big thing for me when it comes to the whole cuties deal, I hate the way, and it's right wingers and religious fundamentalists and internet trolls are the only people who are upset by this movie. No, dude, it's not. Like, there are literal leftists and socialists and liberals who also don't like the idea of 11-year-old girls in skin-tight, skimpy outfits, twerking and humping the ground and slapping each other's bottoms. That's, here's another thing that kills me is when Netflix apologized not for distributing the movie, but for the marketing materials, which they said were taken out of context and didn't represent the movie. Dude, it's a still from the film. It's literally a still from the film. How can that not represent the movie? Are you pretending that that's not a still from the film? Because it is. And, I don't know about Maimouna Doucouré. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. I apologize if I am. I want to believe that this was in good faith, that this was just a massive error in judgment, but it was a massive error in judgment. Oh, guys, no, this movie is against child sexualization. Okay, so I'm going to make an anti-animal abuse film. Has anybody got a dog I can whip to death? I'm going to videotape myself whipping this dog to death. That's exactly what's going on here. If you're against child sexualization, hey, maybe don't get 11-year-old girls to sexualize themselves on camera for the enjoyment of, thousands, maybe millions of pedophiles are watching that movie, and they're not watching it for the message. So yeah. Oh yeah. I see somebody mentioning child trafficking cults in Westchester. Uh, I I don't know about that specifically. I do have a chapter on UK institutional pedophilia in general and the grooming epidemic. I really do believe. Uh, I hate to say this, but I think that there's been a current that goes all the way back, probably much further than Prince Albert and the Cleveland Street scandal, but at least from there to where we are today, where tens of thousands of underage girls are being kidnapped, hooked on drugs, and then prostituted. There's a lot of that going on. And in Britain's defense, in the defense of the UK, they seem to at least pay lip service to, they've got the IICSA, the institutional child sexual abuse investigation, blah blah blah. They're at least admitting that there's a problem and pretending to investigate it, if not really investigating it. Meanwhile, in America, it's like we've got our heads in the sand.
Right. Here's another question.
I see somebody asking in the chat, by the way.
Yeah. North Fox Island Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan. Are you familiar with North Fox Island Interlochen Arts Camp in Michigan?
No, I'm not actually. Okay. This is something I'll have to look up. As far as the art thing goes, I've heard a lot of creepy things about. There's like, as far as customs goes, I do know this. Like, you can ship certain things and you can say it's art, and then like, oh well, this is very fragile. You cannot open this. And I do believe that the world of high art is involved in money laundering, and possibly there's even child trafficking connections there.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Philip, because during Pizzagate,
I see somebody asking about Isaac Cappy.
Yes, answer that question.
I think I'm not sure what I think about Isaac Cappy. I don't know. I kind of wonder, I don't know, sort of like Corey Feldman. I definitely believe that both Corey Feldman and Isaac Cappy knew some things, but I also kind of fear, and I hope I'm wrong on both counts, I also kind of fear maybe there was some blackmail over their head in some way, and I don't necessarily mean like involving kids, that's, how they got Assange, like there was consensual sex, and then the girl claims that the condom came off, and in Sweden that's called rape. There's all these little ways that they can put something and hang it over your head. So as to whether Isaac Cappy committed suicide or not, I don't know. I do, however, believe that, from some of what I saw, I believe that he probably had some things hanging over his head. Not necessarily, I'm not calling him a pedophile or saying he was involved in that, but if he knew about that kind of thing, then they definitely would have been watching him. The folks who were watching, I wouldn't be surprised if most of the people who are seriously looking into this kind of thing have some dossier in some government office somewhere. Honestly, I practically expect it. If I do my job right, eventually, like if you look online, the CIA.gov has a lot of documents that are books and things written by folks like Lyndon LaRouche. Lyndon LaRouche's Executive Intelligence Review. They subscribed to LaRouche and they photocopied all that stuff. Like, I honestly, it's almost a goal of mine. I want one day for some CIA guy to be Xeroxing Pedogate primer, stapling it together, and putting it in a folder. You got to kind of expect that you're being watched. The folks I work with, I know we've been stalked by some journalists because we're involved in trying to promote free speech and everything, and sunlight's the best disinfectant, so free speech platforms are incredibly important with all the social media censorship. I bet a lot of folks here may be aware, but some may not. Around the time I was finishing the book, I noticed, if you go to Facebook, hashtag Pedogate used to bring up all these groups and posts, hashtag save the children, hashtag save our children. Now, anything related to child trafficking has been deemed by the powers that be, oh, that's a dangerous QAnon conspiracy that we must snuff out. Well, that's kind of scary to me. Just the idea that they can completely shut down all these groups and shut down these hashtags. And, they're trying to prevent people from, coordinating information, crowdsourcing intelligence. And that's one of the reasons why, free speech platforms are so important. Do you think it's a coincidence that BitChute went down, was deplatformed the day of the election? Because I don't.
I don't either. Philip, we are at 55 minutes. I'd like to wrap this up. I definitely recommend this book to the listeners. Where can people find you on social media, and where can they purchase this book, Pedogate Primer, The Politics of Pedophilia?
Well, right now, I'm still finalizing the formatting. It should be available within the next week or so, hopefully within the next few days, and it'll be at Amazon Kindle on demand. I've got a Lulu set up, Kobo. I want to make sure that there's as many venues as possible for people who don't want to stuff Jeff Bezos' pocket, for instance. I've also got a website that I've started, and pretty much nothing's there. But I will begin blogging there once the book comes out. And I've got a second book that's being edited right now, called Deep State: Penetrating the Veils of the Unelected Shadow Government. That will hopefully be available in the next month or two. You can find me on Facebook. Just search Philip Fairbanks. I'm the one with the glasses wearing a black face mask. I'm also on Twitter at Kafka Guy, as in Franz Kafka, KAFKAGUY. So you can find me on Twitter and Facebook there. Kunstkrieg, Kinopic Studios is my YouTube. Nobody in the world can spell that. Kunstkrieg is German for art war. Kind of a play on the idea that artists are often recruited by the security state, and that kind of thing. A little inside joke there. But yeah, if you can end up spelling that, it's Kunstkrieg on YouTube. That's me. And so yeah. If you find me on Twitter, in the next few days, Pedogate Primer should be available on multiple platforms, and the Deep State book should be coming out in. I believe my editor said that it's about half. They're about half done with the revisions, and so I'm not sure how long it'll take them to finish that, and how long it'll take me to do the rewrites. But hopefully by the end of the year or first of 2021.
Repeat the title of your second book again, please.
Oh, I see somebody mentioned Deep State: Penetrating the Veils of the Unelected Shadow Government. And for folks who listen to Ed Opperman, you can search Ed Opperman, Opperman Report, Philip Fairbanks, MK Ultra, and you'll find an interview I did with him where I talk about that. I see somebody in the chat, by the way, mentioning Law Fueled in Love. Love that YouTube channel. Really, really great, like companion to the McGowan work.
Gotcha. So again, just to wrap up, The author's name is Philip Fairbanks, Fairbanks. Title of the book, again, highly recommended, is Pedogate Primer, The Politics of Pedophilia. Philip, thank you so much.